All right, before we dive into 200 series, let's just have a quick recap. Previously, we talked about the benefits of making a cartoon set, the benefits of making a storyline. We discussed about the problem we are trying to solve, very important. We talk about the contractor expectations. We talk about the need to curate a drawing set based on what contractor needs. We talk about breaking down the building into smaller pieces and the sheet numbering system. But today's lesson is all about 200 series. It is all about oral building elevations. My goal is taking you from someone who maybe never had put together building elevations before to someone who understands the fundamentals of building elevations, someone who understands the priorities, the formatting, how to cross-reference the elevations, what informations to include, what information to exclude. These are all the items we'll cover in this session. Okay, what is the purpose of building elevations? The number one thing is seeing the context, seeing the surrounding, seeing the adjacencies, which wall type is next to what. More than anything, building elevations at this scale is a location diagram. It shows the big picture, it shows the curtain wall types, and it also shows the special items, the one-off items, such as main canopies, the main entrance, the exterior elements, the stairs, ramps. And we use the building elevations to make callouts that takes us to larger drawings for more information, for more detail. That way, we show to the contractor where to focus within the big picture. Okay, what does contractor expect in terms of building elevations? Contractor wants to see the curtain wall types, their locations. Contractor wants to see the boundary conditions. What does boundary condition mean? It is the perimeter of the curtain wall scope. Not all buildings are one big glass tower. In many cases, curtain wall scope interacts with other facade types like stone cladding, like metal cladding. So the contractors needs to know the boundary conditions, the surrounding. Eventually, down the project, contractor will have to coordinate with the other trades. And that way, they can deliver a complete air and watertight building envelope. What about the grid lines and levels? They are point of references. Their job is to make it easy to locate the curtain wall types within the overall project. All right, next slide. So in Revit, you make an elevation, you put it into the sheet. It looks like this useless, messy drawing. You clean up the drawing, you start pulling and pushing the grid lines and levels. It's painful. But after some struggle with the Revit, you finally manage to make your elevation look somewhat okay. Now we will discuss the first method for annotating the curtain wall types. It is a lazy and easy way. What you do is you put a text annotation in the middle of the elevation and it extends its arrows on either side with the intent of showing the area that the specific type covers. Is it the best method out there? Not necessarily, but it's a very straightforward way of communicating curtain wall locations and types. It works better if your building is rather simple and if one curtain wall type stretches from one end to another, but that this method might work. But it doesn't work great for more complicated designs, and there are definitely better ways out there. Okay, the next method. The bulletproof approach is individually tagging each curtain wall type. It's a fail-proof approach, leaves no ambiguity, everything is clear. It doesn't matter if every curtain wall panel is a different type, this approach will still work. It is one of my favorite ways. You can use the tag by category feature. If the tag is too big or too small, you just go to the family editor and edit its size, make it fit into your elevations. Okay, the third method. So this method is similar to the first one, but I think it's much better in terms of clarity. Instead of arrows, you use thick dashed lines to define an area for each curtain wall type. And again, for this method to work, you need a rather well-organized and simple facade. All right, curtain wall types and legends. Regardless of the method you choose, it is always best to add a legend on the sheet. The tag shows the designation, CW01 or whatever, and the legend gives the long and detailed description. It makes contractors' life easy to understand the types, and the legend is there to eliminate the confusion. Okay, you have the overall building elevation, but you need a way of zooming into its parts. You need a strategy to divide and conquer, and the most typical method is to divide your elevations into 4 subparts. So you want to make 4 large callouts, one for each quadrant, and each callout takes you to a larger partial elevation within the 200 series, where you can show more information and add more callouts. And from there, you start with the calling out the typical and atypical conditions, which references to the 500 series to the enlarged drawings. And one more thing, color code your elevations. Having the color-coded elevations ready for coordination is a very powerful way to communicate and stay organized. So definitely take advantage of it. Alternatively, you can make selective callouts. You make some callouts for partial elevations, and you make some callouts for enlarged elevations within the same overall elevation. So we are making references both to 200 series and 500 series within the same overall elevation. We have this option, but this way sometimes gets confusing. Even if you make a cartoon set, it's hard to wrap your head around it. The advantage is you go directly from overall elevations to the enlarged elevations. It allows you to skip a step on the way, so you end up doing less work. But I still prefer the other way we just discussed. I think dividing the overall elevation into 4 quadrants is a better method. It is more work, but it is less prone to confusion, which is exactly what we want. Okay, let's keep going. So this is another way of looking at the 3 approaches we just discussed. In option 1, you have overall elevation, then you zoom into each quadrant, you make partial elevation of each quadrant, and from there you make callouts of 500 series to the enlarged drawings. That is the option I recommend, depending on the project size, because it's more organized. In option 2, you mix and match partial elevations and enlarged elevations within the same overall elevation, or go directly from the overall elevation to the enlarged elevations. It is an option, but just be careful with it. Right, next. So what information are we supposed to show in each category, in each scale of drawings? Here's a checklist. Here's the general guideline. I'm not going to read each item, but you can see the list is getting longer as we move down the drawing set. And you may say, oh, that is obvious. Thank you for the tip. But notice what is not on the list: dimensions. I would argue that you should not dimension anything on elevations other than the grid lines and levels. All the panel sizes should be dimensioned in sections and plans. So use this checklist as the basis for your drawings, and you can decide whether to adjust it depending on the specific conditions on your project. All right, congratulations. You're at the end of another chapter. So what are the key insights? Elevations are all about locations and boundary conditions. Don't be afraid to use thick lines to make the drawings read easy. These zoomed out oral drawings are really nothing but diagrams, so treat them such. Only dimension grid lines and levels. For the callouts, start with the typical panels, then move on to atypical conditions and corners, and finally to the boundary conditions. The color code your elevations, the color code your callouts, your curtain wall types. It makes it much easier to read the elevations, especially during the drawing set planning phase. All right, that is it for the building elevations.